how brave is the urban explorer within you. Can you stomach the empty halls of an asylum? Or the deepest reaches of hospitals long since shut down? No matter how brave you may be, there are abandoned places around the world you should avoid. Relics overtaken by time or claimed by nefarious groups. These 10 neglected places should be at the top of your list of areas to avoid, just as they're at the top of ours. Don't gear up for an expedition to these deserted places before subscribing and clicking the bell. If you've been to or know of any other abandoned locations that should be avoided, leave us a comment. Number 10. The Domes, Casa Grande, Arizona. Featured on an episode of Ghost Adventures, the Domes of Casa Grande are a series of unique UFO-like structures that were the start of a facility intended to be used for computer manufacturing. Partway through the construction, the project was abandoned, and the unusual buildings were left to crumble in the desert sun. Beyond the safety hazard the structures pose, if you believe what the Ghost Adventurers crew has to say, these domes are a breeding ground for evil. Even if you scoff at their claims of demonic activity, locals largely believe that the secluded location has made them an epicenter for cultist activity and witchcraft. Number 9. Kolmanskop, Namibia. As much as we'd like to encourage you to visit the abandoned ruins of the sun-swallowed town of Kolmanskop in the Namibian desert, we couldn't do so in good conscience. It's not that the South African Germanic town is rife with dangerous entities or home to sacrificial rituals, but has instead fallen victim to the persistence of Mother Nature. The structures that once stood proud within the early 20th century mining town have crumbled through years of neglect, some filled nearly to the ceiling with soft desert sand. As fascinating as it would be to experience the final days of this diamond-obsessed ghost town, building instability may make the experience more dangerous than it's worth. Number 8. Krakow, Italy. Once a bustling village in Basilicata, Italy, the now abandoned village of Krakow still towers above the nearby grassy plains. From a distance, the towering hilltop community looks less like a home for people and more like a breeding ground for trapped souls. Potential paranormal inhabitants aside, the structures at Krakow aren't to be trusted, especially after the landslides, earthquakes, and floods that struck the village in the 1960s. Guided tours are available to showcase some of the safer and sturdier parts of town that you should stick to exploring. Potential building instability and the whispers of residents long gone make the bulk of this Italian village worth avoiding. Number 7. Michigan Central Station, Detroit, Michigan. Thanks to a recent installation of new windows, the exterior of the once proud hub of Detroit's passenger train hides the grim truth of what lies within the walls of the early 20th century station. From 1913 to 1988, the station welcomed countless passengers, but today, much like the city of Detroit, it's little more than a breeding ground of bad decisions and hidden dangers. The striking architecture is still there, hidden beneath layers of graffiti and rubble coating the ground. Consider you just don't know who may be calling the abandoned building home or what you'd find beneath the debris. We recommend seeing this building from afar, like from here on Top 10 Archive. Number 6. Ryu Young Hotel, Pyongyang, North Korea. Oh, we're sorry. Are the nicknames Hotel of Doom and Phantom Hotel not deterring enough to keep you from wanting to access this unfinished 1,080-foot-tall skyscraper? Started in 1987, construction on the Pyongyang Pyramid Hotel was met with numerous obstacles, including issues with building materials, an economic crisis after the fall of the Soviet Union, and methods used during construction. The building is still in a partial state today, though military personnel were observed on site in mid-2017. Even if you could get access, questionable building tactics may be a good reason to avoid exploring the incomplete hotel. Number 5. Oradour, Haute-Vienne, France. If you kept up with your World War II tragedies, then you may recognize the French village of Oradour-sur-Garonne as the site of the Waffen-SS Company massacre. The remnants of the old village remain to remind of the 642 lives that were ended at the hands of the Nazi company. Considering the magnitude of the events of June 10, 1944, the energy surrounding the crumbling memorial must be intense. Though the massacre happened over 73 years ago, a walk through Oradour requires care, not just for the preservation of the site, but to avoid suffering injury on a rusty piece of equipment or on a jagged brick. Number 4. North Brother Island, New York. If you're one to believe that places of great turmoil and suffering leave behind a strong and potentially dangerous energy, then North Brother Island between the Bronx and Rikers Island in New York may be a trip worth skipping. Once the site of a hospital that housed tuberculosis and yellow fever patients, including Typhoid Mary, and subsequently a World War II veterans' home, the island has seen its fair share of death. Even if the souls of the damned aren't a concern, nature's tenacity has made much of the old brick hospital a hazard to walk through. Number 3. Old Atlanta Prison Farm, Atlanta, Georgia. Sometimes echoes from the past can be heard as you walk through, embedded in the walls and the articles left behind. If you enter the halls of the desolate Atlanta Prison Farm, you can almost hear the 50 years of activity, the sounds of prisoners shuffling in their cells, and prison cell doors slamming closed. It's a spooky, dangerous building hollowed out by a 2009 fire that firefighters let burn because the building wasn't worth the risk to save. But avoiding the prison isn't just a matter of safety. Trespassers elicit a quick response from law enforcement. Number 2. Six Flags Jazzland, New Orleans, Louisiana. One would expect visiting a place called Jazzland would make for a boisterous good time. But this abandoned New Orleans theme park is a haunting site filled with unstable structures and plenty of opportunities to contract tetanus. The once happy place, like much of the Big Easy, was destroyed during Hurricane Katrina and has sat unattended to for over a decade, the joy that it once provoked resounding like ghostly memories. Despite plans to turn the former Six Flags into a water park or shopping mall, the steel frames continue to rust, corrode, and grow even more hazardous to curious visitors. Number 1. Pripyat, Ukraine. The town of Pripyat was built just under 2 miles away from the nuclear reactor at Chernobyl, so when the reactor blew on April 26, 1986, the town and its residents were not going to be protected from any fallout. 36 hours after the nuclear accident, the town was evacuated of its 50,000 inhabitants and left to suffer the long-term effects of the catastrophe. There are pictures of the town in this disheveled state, meaning it wasn't too deadly for a photographer to spend any length of time within the town. But we'd still err on the side of caution. You're still embarking on a trek to these locations, are you? Well, before we lose you, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and maybe even hold off on your journey to check out these 2 videos.